I'm sitting in a small room in Penang, Malaysia right now, a fan turning overhead, a window that looks out onto a street I'll never belong to, and I'm thinking about the last 10 years of my life, 10 years in Thailand, and what I have left to show for them, $92,000. That's what I lost, not all at once, piece by piece, like someone slowly pulling the floorboards out from under you while you smile and say everything's fine. When Thailand taught me something, I wish I'd learned cheaper. A warm smile is not the same as a warm heart. And by the time you figure out the difference, everything you built is already gone. In 2013, I was 52 years old, British, from Derby. I'd just taken early retirement from a 28-year career in IT infrastructure, the kind of work that pays well and kills you slowly. I walked out with £210,000 saved. At the exchange rate then, they call it around $320,000. Not a fortune, but enough, I thought, to live well somewhere warm for the rest of my life. My marriage had ended 4 years earlier. Claire and I had been together 17 years. No dramatic betrayal, just two people who'd become strangers inside the same house. The divorce was civil, expensive, but civil. I was lonely. I won't dress it up as anything else. There's a 52-year-old man rattling around a 2-bedroom flat in Derby in November. Gray skies, gray pavements. A colleague called Pete, who'd retired 2 years before me, kept ringing me up from Phuket. Garry, you would not believe it out here. The weather, the food, the cost of living. You're living like a king on $2,000 a month. I thought he was exaggerating. He wasn't. I flew out in February 2013 for 3 weeks, landed in Bangkok, went south to Phuket, then across to Koh Samui, and something opened up in me that had been sealed shut for years. The heat, the color of the water, the markets at night, the way strangers smiled at you for no reason. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in a decade. I came back to Derby, gave my landlord notice, and within 6 months I was gone. I'd been in Phuket about 4 months when I met Chanida. It was a Tuesday night in Patong. Pete had dragged me out to a bar near Bangla Road. Chanida wasn't calling out to anyone. She was standing near the bar, talking quietly to another girl, laughing at something on her phone. She was 27, slim, with long hair she'd tied loosely to one side. What caught me wasn't the way she looked. It was the fact that she wasn't performing. Everybody else in that place was performing. I bought myself a beer and somehow ended up standing near her. She glanced over and said in careful English, "You look lost." I laughed. She laughed. That was it. And her English was limited but warm. She was from Phuket originally. She'd moved to Patong 2 years earlier to work. "Send money to my mother," she said simply, with no self-pity. Her father had died when she was a teenager. She had a daughter, 4 years old, from a relationship with a Thai man who disappeared before the baby was born. I know what you're thinking. I was thinking it too, somewhere deep underneath the part of me that didn't want to think it. But with Chanida, it felt different. She wasn't asking me for anything. She didn't push herself at me. 3 days later, I went back. She was there. At the end of the night, she said her motorbike had broken down and needed 900 baht to fix it, about $25. I gave it without hesitating. Looking back, that was the audition. She'd learned what she needed to know. I was easy, I was generous, and I didn't ask questions. She passed me. She made me feel needed, which, at 52, for after a divorce and a long, lonely winter in Derby, is a more powerful drug than any man likes to admit. By late 2013, life had taken on a shape that felt like something worth waking up for. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment in Rawai for $520 a month. I gave her a monthly allowance of around $230 so she didn't have to work. Then, 5 months in, she came to me one evening looking drawn. Her mother needed dental surgery. About $350. "I don't want to ask," she said, "but I have no one else." There was a small, cold voice somewhere underneath the warmth saying, $350 is a lot for dental work. I gave it anyway. Looking back now, I see exactly what that moment was. It was a test, not a cruel one, a calibration. She learned I would always say yes, and that became the operating principle of the next 9 years. By the spring of 2014, we were talking about marriage. Yet I'd been in Thailand a year by then. I was 53. Her family asked for 400,000 baht as Sinsot, the Thai bride price, roughly $11,000. I negotiated it down to 7,200, paid in cash, in an envelope. I was told a portion would be returned after the ceremony as a sign of goodwill. It wasn't. We married in October 2014. Cost me another $3,500 all in. By that point, I'd spent just over $17,000. I thought marriage would settle things. I thought the asking would slow down. I was wrong. This was just the beginning. The first year of marriage passed without drama, which I now understand to have been part of the design. Then came the bag. We were at a mall in Phuket town, and Chanida stopped in front of a designer handbag, about $400. She said quickly, "It's fine, never mind." The way you say something when you want to be asked again. I bought it. That phrase, "it's only," became the most expensive 2 words of my life. It's only a phone. It's only for the festival. It's only this once. In the 3 years after our wedding, I said, "It's only maybe 60 times. It was never only." By mid-2016, Chanida had started comparing me to other expat husbands. "Malay's husband bought her a car," she'd mention, not looking at me. Or, Fern says her husband never questions the money." I'd end up being more generous to prove I wasn't the husband who questioned the money. Then I noticed the phone. Sometime in late 2016, she started turning it face down when I came into the room, taking calls on the balcony. I asked her once, lightly, who she'd been talking to. "My friend she said. "Why you not trust me?" I let it go. I told myself I was paranoid. Then Chanida started talking about a house, and this was when things went from bad to catastrophic. We were sitting on the terrace after dinner, and she said quietly, "I want us to have our own home. A small plot in Thalang, land and build, around 3 million baht, $86,000. I hesitated. I knew the rules. Foreign nationals cannot own land in Thailand. The land would have to go in her name. If the relationship ended, I would have 0 legal claim. I told her this. She looked at me steadily and said, "We married." "Same, Zda." Then, "You not trust me?" And softer, "I will never leave you, Garry." I talked to Pete, who said, "Mate, you know the risk." I read the forums. I knew. I did it anyway. The build cost $110,000 in the end. The land was registered in her name. The house was registered in her name. I'd paid $110,000 for a home I did not legally own. I stood in the garden when we moved in and felt, against all logic, proud. And I thought, now things will stabilize. Within 4 months, she was asking about a restaurant. a small cafe in Shillong, Thai food and Western breakfasts, fit out, equipment, licenses, $14,000. I put it in. The restaurant opened in July 2018 and lost money from the first month. Chanida always had a reason. The rainy season was slow. A staff member stole from the till. Every month she came to me with a number. I paid. Over 14 months, I injected another $8,000 on top of the initial 14, $22,000 total. The business never once turned a profit I could verify. When I asked to see the accounts, Chanida got defensive. "You think Thanet steal, he my family." I backed down every time. Meanwhile, things at home had changed. We shared a house, shared a table, but the intimacy was largely gone. She visited her village more frequently, sometimes 2 or 3 days without me. Her phone was always face down, always on silent. Then, in March 2019, everything came apart. Chanida had gone to Tesco. She'd left her phone on the coffee table. It lit up. I sat looking at it for probably 30 seconds. Then I walked over. The screen showed a WhatsApp message. The name was Lek, a man's name. There was a heart emoji, and what I recognized as the Thai word for miss. I put it back exactly where it was. On the Thursday, I contacted a Thai private investigator Pete had once mentioned. 15,000 baht for 2 weeks of observation. I paid it. The report arrived 12 days later, delivered in person, in a cafe, in a brown envelope. He'd followed her on 6 separate days. On 4 of those days, she had met with a Thai man, mid-30s, stocky build, at a hotel in Chalong, a restaurant in Phuket town, and once at our house. He showed me photographs. Chanida and this man sitting in our garden, in our sala, drinking from our cups. The man's name was Korakot. He was from Chanida's home village. They had been together, intermittently, since before she met me. He was the father of her daughter. The one she told me had disappeared before the baby was born. He hadn't disappeared, he just moved sideways. 5 years. 5 years she'd been managing 2 lives, and I'd been paying for both of them. I waited until a Monday evening when she was relaxed and placed the investigator's photographs on the coffee table in front of her. Said nothing. She looked at them. I watched her face. The recognition, instant, and then the calculation of what to do with it. "Where you get this?" Not a question. A measurement. She said the photos were misleading, that Korakot was a cousin. This not what you think. I told her I had weeks of documentation. She went very quiet, and when she looked up, on something had left her face, the softness, the performance. What was left was a kind of flat pragmatism I had never seen before. He my friend, old friend, long time. He's the father of Nong's daughter. She didn't deny it. Before you, yes. And after me? She looked at the wall. Sometimes. I asked her if she had ever loved me. She looked at me for a long moment and said, "You were good to me, Garry. You good man." Which was not an answer. "Why?" I said. "Why marry me if this is how it was going to be?" She didn't hesitate. "I need stability. Korakot, he cannot give me stability. You can. It is not bad thing to want stable life. You used me." She looked almost sorry. "I gave you what you wanted too." I told her she needed to leave. She said it was her house. She was right. Legally, it was entirely her house. She called her brother that night. In 3 hours, she had packed what she considered hers, which was most things, and gone. She took Nong with her, the little girl I'd watched grow from an infant to a 5-year-old who called me Uncle Garry, who I'd taken to the beach and bought ice cream for. She wasn't mine, but the loss of her was a different kind of wound than I'd expected. The house, $110,000. The restaurant, $22,000. Total spent or lost, approximately $187,000. What remained was roughly $90,000, and my monthly income had dropped to around $1,100. I was 59 years old. I could not go back to a corporate IT role. That world had moved past me while I'd been drinking coffee on a terrace in Phuket. I found out later that Chanida had done something similar before. A Danish man, 5 years before me. He'd built a house, too. He'd also lost it. I hadn't known because I'd never thought to ask the right questions. On Chanida's cousin Thanet had apparently mentioned, casually, that the Farang was paying for everything and didn't check the books. It had been a running joke. 2 weeks before I left, I went back to the house to collect some things. My father's watch, some documents, a hard drive. Korakot was there, sitting in my garden, in my sala, drinking from my cups. A large man with a motorbike helmet balanced on the table. He looked at me with no particular expression. He had nothing to be hostile about. He'd won. As I turned to leave, Chanida said, "You be okay, Garry." Not unkindly, genuinely, I think, as if I were a guest at a resort who was checking out after a longer-than-expected stay. I left Phuket on a Thursday morning in September 2019. I had 2 bags and just over $90,000 left. I didn't look back. Not because I was strong, because I was afraid if I looked back, I might turn around. I'm in Penang now. I rent a small room for $280 a month. I teach English online, 12 to 15 hours a week. I live carefully. I have enough, barely. Not the retirement I planned, not even close to it. If you're watching this, please listen to what this cost me to learn. Never put property in her name. Never. Under Thai law, the moment that land is in her name, it belongs to her. Full stop. I spent $110,000 on a house I legally had no claim to the moment the ink dried. If she makes owning a home together a condition of the relationship, that tells you everything you need to know. A 20-plus year age gap is not a relationship. It's a transaction. I was 52. She was 27. I was not special. I was available, solvent, and desperate enough to believe it. If you removed the money, you'd remove the relationship. Ask yourself that question honestly. I didn't. The family emergencies never stop. The first request establishes a pattern. Say no to the first request. If you can't see the accounts, walk away from the business. "You don't trust my cousin" is not a financial report. If they won't show you where the money goes, it's because you wouldn't like where it's going. Trust what you see, not what you're told. Red flags are not suggestions. They are descriptions of what is already happening. Love does not cost you everything. An extraction does. When these lessons cost me $187,000 and 5.5 years, I'm giving them to you in about 5 minutes. Please take them. If you're already there and something feels wrong, leave now, not later, not after the house is finished, not after you see if the business turns around. Now. You cannot get back time. You can sometimes rebuild money. You cannot rebuild the years. I lost my retirement to Thailand. I'm 63. I teach English online, and I eat dinner alone most nights in a room in Penang. Don't be another one of these stories. Please, just don't do it.